The morning sun filtered weakly through the clouds as you and Jungkook sat across from each other at the breakfast table, an unspoken tension hanging heavily in the air. He stole a glance at him, noticing how his jaw was set and his gaze firmly fixed on his plate. The events of the previous night played over in your mind. The argument that had escalated over something small, yet it had left a rift between you. Usually, he would make the first move to ease things over, but this time he was silent, his expression unreadable. You pushed your food around your plate, glancing at him now and then, hoping he might say something, anything. Yet he remained distant, his face a mask of stoicism, his beautiful brown eyes barely meeting yours. A pang of sadness welled up inside you, but pride held your words back. Why does he have to be so stubborn? You thought your heart sinking a little as the silence stretched on. Jungkook finally cleared his throat, and you looked up, hopeful, but he only took a sip of his coffee, glancing at his watch. The small flicker of hope in your chest dimmed. You let out a soft sigh, unable to contain it. This is ridiculous. Why are we like this? You thought, throwing blowers at him. You opened your mouth, about to break the silence, when he suddenly shifted, setting his coffee cup down a bit too forcefully. The sound of him setting down his coffee cup was the only interruption to the thick silence. It felt surreal. Normally, he would crack a joke or at least look at you by now, but this morning he was as closed off as a stranger. You poked at your food, your heart twisting in frustration. Does he even care? The thought gnawed at you, made worse by the silence, which seemed to amplify the doubt filling your mind. You wanted to break it, to reach across the table, but pride held your tongue still. I'll be late tonight. Without looking up, he murmured and pushed back his chair with a quiet scrape against the floor. Gave you a fleeting look, guarded and unreadable. Without another word, he turned and left, the door clicking shut behind him. The emptiness of the room felt even heavier in his absence. For a moment, you just sat there, staring at the place where he had been. The house felt empty, as if the silence had become something tangible, something you could reach out and touch. So this is how it's gonna be. You murmured bitterly, swallowing the egg that had creeped up from your chest. Fine then, if he wants to keep acting cold, I'll do the same. You muttered to yourself, bitterness creeping into your mind as you ate the rest of your breakfast messily. As the evening rolled around, the sky outside darkened, and rain began to drum against the windows, thick sheets of water streaming down the glass. You sat on the edge of the couch, glancing at the clock and fighting the urge to check your phone. You tried to distract yourself with a little task around the house, but your mind kept drifting back to Jungkook. He still wasn't home, and with each minute that passed, worry gnawed deeper at you, chipping away at the remnants of your frustration. Why isn't he back yet? The thought kept circling in your mind, making it harder to sit still. You tried to push it aside, to tell yourself it was his responsibility to reach out if he wanted to ease things between you. He should be back by now, right? You glanced at the clock, watching the minutes tick by as worry slowly replaced your lingering irritation. You wrapped your arms around yourself, feeling the chill from the storm seep into the room. I could just call him, you thought, staring at your phone, but the idea of reaching out first made something in you twist with frustration. Why hadn't he called you? Was he that upset? The minutes dragged on, and as the rain outside grew heavier, your worry became a knot in your stomach. The thought of him out there in the storm with no word tugged relentlessly at your heart. This is silly. Forget the argument. I need to know if he is okay. Finally, unable to take it anymore, you grabbed your phone ready to call him, but just then the door creaked open. Your head shot up, relief flooding through you as Jungkook stepped inside, but the relief quickly turned to concern as you took in his appearance. He looked completely soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead, droplets rolling down his face. His clothes clung to his body, and a shiver racked through him as he shut the door behind him. His gaze flicked up to yours, and you saw the faint redness around his eyes, his nose pink, and he was shivering, looking thoroughly exhausted. Jungkook, you whispered his name, your voice thick with concern, all your anger melting away in an instant. He didn't say a word, didn't meet your gaze, only stood there, shivering slightly as water pooled at his feet. Without thinking, you rushed to grab a towel from inside, wrapping it around his shoulders. His skin was cold beneath your hands as he reached up to hold the towel in place. You felt him sway just slightly, as if barely holding himself up. "Thank you," he mumbled, his voice barely above a whisper. "Where were you?" You asked, your voice soft, almost afraid to break the silence. "Traffic," he murmured, voice hoarse, avoiding your eyes. Then, without another word, he walked past you, heading for the bedroom. His shoulders slumped as if weighed down by something far heavier than the rain-soaked clothes clinging to his body. You watched him retreat, your heart aching as worry replaced all the anger you had felt throughout the day. He was not okay, you thought, feeling the urge to reach out and comfort him, but pride held you back once more. You reheated the dinner you had prepared earlier, setting everything on the table in silence. When Jungkook returned, his clothes were dry, but he still looked pale and sniffled every now and then as you both sat down to eat. The only sound was a faint clinking of utensils, the silence between you feeling strangely alive, humming with the unspoken words that hung between you both. You kept glancing at him out of the corner of your eye, noticing the slight sniffle that punctuated his breathing, the way he rubbed his nose subtly every now and then. He kept his gaze trained on his plate, but his shoulders seemed to hunch, as though he were trying to shield himself from something unseen. He is sick, you thought, feeling a pang of worry despite the remnants of frustration lingering in your heart. But he didn't say anything, and neither did you. Part of you wanted to reach across the table, to place a hand over his and tell him to rest. But every time you tried to muster the courage, the memory of last night's argument held you back. The silence was heavy, yet somehow you could sense a small shift, as though the hurt from the last night was softening just a bit. After dinner, Jungkook excused himself to the bedroom. As you cleared the dishes, you found yourself glancing at the pot of turmeric milk you had prepared earlier. Without thinking twice, you poured a glass and went to the bedroom. He wasn't in the room, so you placed it on his bedside table and returned to the kitchen. Though it was a quiet gesture, you hoped it would speak louder than words. As Jungkook emerged out of the bathroom, his eyes fell on the glass of milk placed on the bedside table. A small smile curved on his lips, knowing you had prepared it for him. Stubborn woman. She would do everything to take care of me, but wouldn't take the initiative to talk after an argument. He chuckled to himself, taking a seat on the edge of the bed. When you entered the bedroom after washing the dishes, you noticed him sitting on the edge of the bed, holding the glass of turmeric milk in his hands. He looked surprised, glancing at it with a soft, almost childlike smile. His face softened as he looked up at you, and for a brief moment you saw a glimmer of something, gratitude and maybe even affection, in his gaze. Thought he would speak to you now, but he just silently drank the milk, much to your disappointment. You felt a small tug at your heart, a warmth that settled in your chest as you watched him drink it. At least he knew you cared, that an argument could only bring silence for a while, but couldn't separate you both. Allowing yourself a small smile, you climbed into bed, each of you facing opposite directions but feeling a little closer somehow. Stealing a brief glance at him, you closed your eyes. A small smile remained intact on your lips. The tension in the room felt lighter, like a truce had been called without words. As you lay there, your eyes grew heavy and you promised yourself you would work things out in the morning. Tomorrow, we'll talk things out tomorrow, you thought before drifting into a deep slumber. Meanwhile, Jungkook finished the milk and put the glass down with a soft clink. He turned towards your side, intending to talk to you, but found you already sleeping. He leaned down and pressed a tender kiss on your forehead. Good night. I slept inside the comforter, feeling weak and weary. Tomorrow morning, we're gonna talk things out first, murmured to himself and closed his eyes. He slept in no time. A few hours into the night, you felt a gentle tug at your side, something warm pressing against you. You blinked, half awake, and realized that Jungkook had shifted closer, his arms slipping around your waist as he nestled against you, his body trembling slightly. You turned, surprised to find him shivering, his face flushed and his breathing slightly labored. His skin was alarmingly warm to the touch, his forehead beaded with sweat, yet his body was racked with chills. Jungkook, are you okay? He whispered, reaching up to brush his hair back. He only groaned softly, his brows knitted in discomfort as he shifted closer, twisting your oversized shirt and pressing his feverish skin against yours. His arms tightened around you, and he buried his face in the crook of your neck, seeking comfort from the cold that racked his body. He mumbled something, a soft, desperate sound, pressing himself closer to you. Cold, so cold, he whispered, his voice strained, barely audible. Your heart ached as you held him close, feeling his body tremble against yours. Alarm flooded through you as you felt his forehead. He was burning up. Jungkook, you are having a fever, you whispered, your voice filled with worry, your hands stroking his head gently. Let me get you something for the fever, okay? You tried to pull away, intending to get him medicine, but his grip tightened, his hand twisting in the fabric of your shirt. No, please don't. Don't leave, just stay, he muttered, his voice breaking, sounding so vulnerable it made your chest ache. He only clung to you tighter, his breathing shallow. You swallowed, wrapping your arms around him and pulling him closer, letting him press himself against your warmth. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, you whispered, stroking his damp hair, soothing him with gentle touches. You pressed a gentle kiss on his temple. After a few minutes, he drifted back into a fitful sleep, his breathing slowing down. He carefully slipped out of the bed and retrieved some medicine and a damp cotton cloth. When you returned, you found him curled up, his face pressed into the pillow, looking vulnerable and pale in the dim light. Jungkook, take medicine. Gently, you helped him sit up. You held the glass of water to his lips as he drank the medicine, brushing a comforting hand over his back as he swallowed. Thank you, he whispered, his voice low and hoarse. His eyes half lighted as he looked at you with an expression that was a mixture of exhaustion and gratitude. You placed a finger over his lips, silencing him with a soft smile. You don't have to thank me, just rest, you whispered, dabbing his forehead with the cool cloth as he lay back down. He watched you, his gaze softened, and you felt his fingers brush against yours, a silent plea for you to stay close. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Let's talk later. Right now, I just need you to get better. Give him a soft smile. As you got up to place the cloth aside, he grabbed your wrist. Turning around, your gaze met his hooded one. He weakly patted the space beside him on the bed. I want you to hold me. I'm still feeling cold. You chuckled at his adorable plea. Discarding the damp cloth in a corner, you slipped inside the duvet. He didn't waste a moment in shifting closer. His limbs coiled around your body and his head found a way to your chest, nuzzling against your warmth. Should I bring you another blanket? You asked as you felt him still shivering slightly. He shook his head, tightening his hold around you as if telling that he needed your warmth. He let out a soft whimper and sat up slightly, making your brows furrow in confusion. The next moment, he removed his sweatshirt. Lifting your oversized shirt, he slipped his head inside. You blinked. Your stomach churned wildly when his hot breath fanned against your skin. The thin fabric of your camisole was the only barrier stopping the skin-to-skin contact. He buried his face in the nook of your neck and let out a soft sigh. Better now, you asked, pulling the blanket up to your neck, covering him properly. Throughout the night, you stayed beside him, holding him and whispering soothing words whenever he stirred. Your heart ached each time he whimpered or shifted, seeking warmth from your touch. Eventually, his fever began to break, and his breathing grew steady, his body finally relaxing as he drifted into a peaceful sleep. You too slept after him. The soft glow of dawn filled the room, casting warm hues over the bed where you lay with Jungkook still nestled beside you. His fever had broken and his breathing was even and calm. You watched him sleep, tracing the faint lines of his face with your eyes, marveling at how peaceful he looked. Then his eyes slowly blinked open, and for a moment he simply gazed at you, a sleepy smile forming on his lips as he reached up, brushing a strand of hair from your face. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice husky and warm. "Good morning, how are you feeling now?" "Better," he said, his gaze filled with a quiet gratitude. He paused, taking a breath. Relief washed over you, seeing him well again. You couldn't resist brushing your fingers gently over his cheek, and he leaned into your touch, his eyes closing momentarily. He opened his eyes again, his gaze softening as he took you in. Then he tugged you closer, closing the small gap between you both. "Thank you for everything last night, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to let things get this bad." Gave him a soft smile, shaking your head. "It's okay. I'm sorry too. I should have reached out sooner." Or gave a small, sheepish smile, his hand intertwining with yours. "Guess we are both a little stubborn," laughed softly, leaning your forehead against his. He looked at you with a warmth that made your heart ache, his thumb tracing gentle circles on your skin. "You stayed awake all night?" he asked, his voice laced with tenderness. "Of course, how could I sleep when you were sick?" you whispered, your heart swelling as you pressed a soft kiss to his forehead. Jungkook's lips curved into a smile as he tilted his head up, capturing your mouth in a gentle, lingering kiss. The touch of his lips was warm, and the tenderness in his kiss made your heart skip a beat. He pulled back, his eyes filled with something deep, unspoken. "Thank you," he whispered, and before you could respond, his lips found yours again, this time with a quiet urgency. His hand moved to your waist, pulling you closer until you were nearly pressed against him, his lips trailing soft, teasing kisses along your jawline. A quiet laugh escaped as he prepared kisses along your cheek, his breath warm against your skin. "You know, I feel so much better when I'm close to you like this. My energy was low throughout the day when we weren't talking." His voice was playful, his nose brushed yours, and he planted a feather-light kiss just at the corner of your mouth. You laughed softly, a blush rising as he continued his trail of gentle kisses, his hands slipping to cradle your face. "It wouldn't have happened if you had spoken to me in the morning," he chuckled softly, shaking his head. He knew how tough you were. You would glare at him all day but wouldn't take the initiative to speak first. "You are impossible." He kissed you again, his lips brushing yours with a tenderness that sent warmth flooding through you. You smiled, your fingers tangling in his hair as you returned his kiss, lingering for a moment before murmuring, "But you still love me." A mischievous glint sparkled in his eyes as he laughed softly, his lips tracing the line of your neck, making your heart race. Agreed. From next time I'll get sick after an argument so that you can take care of me, and I'll throw tantrums too. Jungkook, he narrowed your eyes and playfully pushed him away, but he only grinned, pulling you back to him, his arms wrapping around you. Just saying, you're very cute when you are worried about me. He murmured, nuzzling against your cheek. You shook your head, smiling as he leaned in for another kiss, this one deeper, slower, as if savoring every second. His fingers slipped to the nape of your neck, holding you close as if he wanted to feel every bit of your warmth. When you finally pulled away, his face was inches from yours, his eyes filled with a warmth and playfulness that made you feel as if nothing else in the world mattered. I think we have a lot of time to make up for. He murmured, his lips brushing your ear as he spoke. You felt a shiver as his lips found the sensitive spot just below your ear, his kisses becoming soft, teasing touches along your neck. What are your intentions, Mr. John? You squinted your eyes playfully, though you couldn't hold back your smile. He moved his head back enough to gaze up at you. Cuddles and a lot of kisses. Pamper this sick husband of yours. Roll your eyes and squeeze the next moment when he lay on his back, pulling you on top of himself. You don't want to go to work? You lifted your head to look at him, but he closed his eyes. Holding your nape, he pressed your face on his chest. I've lost the capability to hear till next morning. The only thing I can hear, I love you from your mouth. You tried to raise your head to look at him, but he had it pressed on his chest, not allowing you to move. Oh, I'm sleepy. Let's go back to sleep. Let out a sigh when he patted your head like a child. Within minutes, you drifted off to sleep along with him.